Did you know that in 1965, Singapore's GDP per capita was just $516, among the lowest in the world? Today, it stands at over $72,794, making it one of the wealthiest nations in the world. How did it overcome poverty? In this video, we will tell the remarkable story of Singapore's journey from a poverty-stricken nation to an economic powerhouse. So stick around to explore the secrets behind Singapore's astounding transformation. Singapore was handed its independence on a silver platter in 1965. But it wasn't exactly a smooth sailing expedition. No, it was more like a roller coaster ride with unexpected loops and turns. They were booted out of the Malaysian Federation, but instead of sulking, they dusted themselves off and said, "All right, it's time to show the world what we've got." Now, what were the specific milestones that propelled this small island state from adversity to affluence? In the 19th century, a mammoth corporation, the British East India Company, practically ran its own show, generating more revenue than some nations, boasting its own military, and hosting a fifth of the world's population on its private lands. The British East India Company had its eye on setting up a port along this lucrative route to safeguard its trade. But the Dutch had a firm grip on those lands for the past 2 centuries, holding a monopoly that discouraged anyone from challenging their dominance. Yet, enter Sir Thomas Raffles, a determined company official who saw the potential of a sparsely populated island at the tip of the Malayan Peninsula, a little place called Singapore. Despite the Dutch monopoly, he took it upon himself to establish a port there. Surprisingly, the Dutch didn't put up much of a fight, allowing the British to have their slice of territory. However, Singapore wasn't meant to be just any port. It was designed to be a free port, offering zero taxes on businesses and port-related activities. Word spread like wildfire, and within a few years, tens of thousands of traders from China, the Malay Peninsula, and India flocked to Singapore, lured by the promise of tax-free profits. By 1867, Singapore officially became a crown colony of the British Empire. But the real game-changer was yet to come, introducing rubber trees in Malaya, the colonial British term for colonies on the Malay Peninsula, and the booming global demand for tin found in the region. Singapore transformed from a mere stopover to the center of Southeast Asia's riches. Despite having no natural resources, Singapore established a symbiotic economic relationship with Malaya, becoming a bustling hub for trade and services, complemented by a growing British military presence. By 1900, Singapore boasted a population of over 200,000, living relatively prosperous lives compared to others in the region. Yet, this unbridled growth would soon hit a major roadblock. During World War II, Singapore was at the mercy of the advancing Japanese Empire. By December 1941, the invaders were at Singapore's doorstep, leading to the island's surrender in February 1942. What followed were 3 long years of unimaginable suffering and destruction, leaving Singapore in ruins after the war. The aftermath was grim, with descriptions of utter filth and poverty painting a bleak picture of post-war Singapore. Amidst all this turmoil, a desire for independence gradually took root. The crippled economy, rising social unrest, and global decolonization movements pushed the population toward the idea of self-governance. It is where Lee Kuan Yew, a key figure in Singapore's history, steps onto the scene. He truly wanted the nation to be independent and got some mind-boggling yet interesting ideas up in his mind. In a nutshell, Lee Kuan Yew, facing a tough road ahead for Singapore, wielded an iron-fisted approach. He tightened the screws with strict rules to stamp out unrest, making sure dissenting voices stayed quiet. Harsh penalties, even public caning for small infractions, were the norm. A one-party show under PAP's thumb, a major political party in Singapore since 1959, all to keep the peace. Lee's strategy was to sacrifice some personal freedoms for the greater good. Economic boom, and a hush-hush society. His tight grip managed to calm the chaos, dealing with deep-rooted tensions. That iron rule, harsh as it was, laid the groundwork for Singapore's epic economic glow-up. 70% of the population lived in ramshackle places without basic amenities, no plumbing, nothing. Lee Kuan Yew whipped up a controversial law allowing the government to snag cheap land for building affordable housing. Now, Lee wasn't keen on his peeps being permanently tied to government handouts. He wanted people to own their piece of the pie. So he dished out sweet deals, encouraging residents to buy their apartments at bargain rates. How'd they afford it? Well, Lee played a sneaky hand, making them save a chunk of their paycheck through the Central Provident Fund. Sneaky, but it worked wonders. It turned Singapore into a savings champ on the world stage. But that wasn't the only thing contributing to Singapore's better economy. State-built homes were the superhero cape for those stuck in slums. Today, 80% of Singaporeans live in these homes they proudly own, dodging insane housing prices. Housing was just the warm-up act. Lee needed to crank up the job machine. Singapore was pretty much a no-resources, no-problem kind of place. Lee had one mission: to attract foreign investors. Low taxes, minimal rules, and even throwing in 10 years of tax holidays were just some of the shiny baits he dangled to lure in foreign businesses. Lee took a sledgehammer to unions to keep wages in check and told businesses to toss out workers striking for better deals. Meanwhile, he tossed cash into fancy new infrastructures and industrial zones. He also played the export card, increasing Singapore's global trade game. And guess what juiced up Singapore's economy? Mao Zedong's antics in China made investors shy away from hotspots like Hong Kong and Taiwan, turning Singapore into a sweet honeypot for businesses. Singapore had the coolest party trick in just a decade: zero unemployment and a jaw-dropping 13% growth rate yearly. But it's not just about economics. Lee cracked down on corruption like a boss. Death penalties and hefty salaries for government bigwigs were his secret sauce to ensure folks kept their hands out of the cookie jar. This anti-corruption gig boosted confidence, led to smarter spending, and put Singapore on the global stage as the place to be for business big shots. Not content with basic manufacturing, Lee Kuan Yew put the spotlight on Singapore's real gem: its people. He built schools, got foreign companies to train folks, and set up top-notch hospitals. This move attracted specialized industries, upped wages, and boosted savings. A sweet loop of productivity gains kicked in, turning Singapore into a hub for petrochemicals, advanced tech, and even shipping. Impressive stuff for a place with zilch natural resources. Despite that, how did it become the third biggest refined petroleum producer? Simple: import raw materials, work magic, and ship high-value goods across the globe. Timing played its part too, with Singapore smoothly bridging gaps between American and European markets, scooping up foreign investments like a pro. Now, owning businesses was not exactly Singapore's forte initially. Lee realized this and worked magic by setting up state-owned companies, including Singapore Airlines and heavy industries. And you know what? These were profit-driven, efficiently managed beasts, despite the usual rap on state-owned enterprises being inefficient. Fast forward, these companies diversified the economy, filled market gaps, and even generated revenue for a sovereign wealth fund, making Singapore's healthcare, infrastructure, and education top-notch. It resulted in one of the planet's richest, most advanced places. Singapore is a unique success story, a blend of luck, smart moves, and yes, some tough decisions, building an economic paradise from scratch.